All right, everybody. Our first and only review of the day is going to be for the film Dune Part Two. Dune Part Two is, of course, a sequel to the first Dune film. This again is Denis Villeneuve. He's coming back to direct it. He's gonna, and he's also going to be doing a third film as well. So it is going to be a trilogy of Dune movies here. And I think that Dune Part Two, it is one of those sequels that really benefits the first film because I think if you see both back to back, I think it really does benefit the first film because I saw the first film of Dune and I thought it's a lot of setup. I thought it was pretty slow. Um,
Yeah, it's mostly set up.
yeah, so it was a little slow there in a lot of parts. So I think it does help the first film to see like this one and see both of them kind of back to back. I think it greatly does help it. So what's going on in this Dune Part Two? Well, you have if you remember at the end of the last one, House of Atreides has basically been all wiped out except for the son and except for the mother there, the wife of Oscar Isaac's character. Yeah, basically a lot of them have been all wiped out. The entire house. And now Paul Atreides, who's played by Timothy Chalamet, and his mother, Lady Jessica, who's played by Rebecca Ferguson, are now hiding amongst the Freemen, the indigenous population of the desert planet of Arrakis, also known as Dune. And while they're hiding amongst the population of the indigenous population there of the Freemen, Paul Atreides is learning the ways of the Freeman. As you can see in this trailer here, he's learning, what it means to be a Freeman. He's learning how to ride a sandworm, which was a very exhilarating, thrilling scene, by the way. That sandworm scene. So he's learning all the different customs, all the different ways to survive in this environment, this harsh desert environment. And I tell you, in this kind of this year of 2024 film, I mean, it really is like a fucking desert of like trying to find some good cinema because
Oh
it is
yeah.
it has been such a wasteland of seeing Argyle and seeing Miller's Girl. I mean, finally, it's
Oof.
like getting this was like getting some fresh water in a desert. I mean, you
Yeah,
haven't drank.
it is an oasis in a desert.
Yeah, and this is some good cinema. Finally, we got some good cinema. It took 3 months into the year, but finally we got some good cinema here. But yes, you see that they're trying to learn the ways and customs there, and you also see that amongst that, he's also disrupting the spice production of House Harkonnen. You see that Dave Bautista has taken over, trying to harness the spice, which in this universe is the precious mineral, precious material there that basically controls everything in this galaxy, in this world here, is spice. And you see them a lot of trying to take the fight to House Harkonnen after their defeat in the first movie and interrupt the spice production. And you also get some new characters in this. You also see John Voight, who's the Emperor of the Galaxy. You see his daughter Florence Pugh. You also see Austin Butler there, who's the youngest nephew of the character played by Stellan Skarsgård, the Baron Harkonnen character. Who Austin Butler, by the way, very good job in this movie, I thought, and I feel like you could still hear his Elvis accent. I know that he said that he kind of trained trying to get rid of the accent because he was such stuck in Elvis mode, but I still feel like even in here, you still hear little bits and pieces of the Elvis accent there. So yeah, that is the setup here of this Dune Part Two, and also I did get some good old Dune merch here. I got the popcorn bucket here. Did you end up getting one?
No, I haven't decided to pick up that one.
Yeah. I ended up getting this. Also got a nice water bottle here as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I stuck my dick in it and everything. So the popcorn bottle and everything.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, so it's really cool though. This is my first popcorn tin that I've ever gotten for a movie. They've done a lot of cool ones, and this is the Dune one here. And a lot of people talking about how freaky it looks, especially if you see because there's a sandworm on top there. Yeah, this is cool though. I like this. This is all right. Um, yes, yes, yes. So Dusk, what are your thoughts on Dune Part Two?
Uh, well, like you said, this really did feel like a finally a bit of some fresh water in a desert of just bad to mediocre films. It's good to see just a well developed visual movie again, especially for considering its budget and how much it utilizes its budget with its use of cinematography and performances and special effects. Honestly, for the amount of budget and the way the special effects are integrated into this movie, the rest of Hollywood should be ashamed of themselves.
Mm, yeah. And what was the budget here on Dune Part 2?
I think it was 190 million.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, close to that. Yeah, I think it was somewhere in the 190 million territory, and looks gorgeous. Looks every
Oh
bit
yeah,
of it here.
especially when they go to the Harkonnen world and it switches over to a completely different color palette.
Yes, and you are correct. It is 190 million. Yeah, budget on this.
Nice.
Yeah. And me and Sage, who's in the chat right now, we talked
Mm,
about the David Lynch, 1984 David Lynch film there.
mm,
And we talked about practically, the sandworms and the environments, all that looked very good. That's one of the big standouts of that movie.
mm.
And you also can kind of see that here of like they actually went to the desert.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't just feel like it's like the Disney does with the whole Valium thing where it's
oh yeah,
somebody there in the whole background, which is I get is a revolutionary piece of technology and can be used good if you know how to really use it.
yeah.
But, it always helps to actually go to these environments because it just makes things, it has that feeling and lived in feeling in it. And
Yeah.
when you are with Paul and when you see Paul kind of amongst the people, the freemen, you feel like you're amongst the freemen. You feel like
Mhm.
you're learning their ways with him. You really feel like, you know, you're learning all these different customs and beliefs that they have. Like I said, that sandworm scene when he's riding it, it's like even though this movie isn't even in 3D, like, that experience like, you feel like you're really riding the sandworm. Like, you
Mm.
feel like, you're attached to it and you're riding and you're going along with them, and it's, like I said, very incredibly thrilling scene, and, another thing about the first movie was that it was a little like I said, a little slow, mostly set up. There probably wasn't a lot of it's not a lot of action in the first one. Here, there's quite a bit more, so that probably is gonna get more people into this, than they did the first one. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I think the action for the most part is well done. It's well choreographed, especially some of the fight scenes later. But I did feel near the end there were some questionable decisions on the way it was shot and presented, and it did feel a bit. I don't know about you, but the ending felt rushed to me in comparison to the rest of the film. It felt very, especially much later on. The fighting felt more clinical later, not as strategic and not what I expected. And there were just certain ways that certain characters arrived to certain scenes later
Mhm.
where I was kind of scratching my head going, well, how did they know to get there? And that doesn't quite make sense on that metric, especially how long you've taken to get to this point. I'm gonna be honest. When I watched this movie, I actually was shocked that we got to the end with the way we got to the end.
Mm.
I was under a pretense. Well, we still have a lot of the stuff to go into. Certain side characters haven't showed up. Certain elements haven't showed up. I guess there'll be a part three. This will kind of be like a two tower situation. Hopefully, they'll wrap it up in a way. We're actually going with the war part. They are going with the invasion part. Oh, okay.
Interesting. 'Cause you've read the book of Dune, written
I've
by
read the
Frank Herbert.
book. I've seen the David Lynch. I've seen the sci-fi TV series version, including Children of Dune, which was a combination of Messiah and the third book. So now I've seen this. I've seen like three different versions of the same story, and a
Yeah,
couple others. So I guess I'm far more familiar with the material.
yeah. And yeah, so this series, Dune, it is an adaptation of Frank Herbert's work. He wrote the novel Dune all the way back in 1965, and there's been various adaptations. A lot of people considered it unfilmable. We mentioned that in our
Oh
review of
yeah, especially
David
when you
Lynch.
read it straight from the book.
Yeah. So it's makes it even crazier to think that David Lynch tried to jam all this stuff
Yeah.
into one movie. There, it's like, man, I understand the stress that must have been there to try to cram all
Yeah.
this material because Dune is dense. It's a very
Oh
dense book.
yeah.
I know of it. I haven't read it myself, but I know it is very dense.
It's
But
a bit of a read. You have to really engross yourself in the world, and it takes quite a bit to do so. Once you do, you really can kind of start to get into the mindset of at least the first book. I say the second book, if you honestly though, the first book is at least the most legible of the ones, the most like digestible, I would say. Once you get to Messiah and Children of Dune, it starts getting all right. Not a lot's kind of happening. We're kind of have to condense some stuff. I mean, things are happening, but it's a lot of stuff kind of political in the background. A couple things happening. Characters aren't. A lot of montage moments would probably be put into film. to kind of show progressive time because a lot of time is passing.
Mm,
Uh, hey, and if people thought that, and I agree with the book for the most part on paper is pretty unfilmable. But if you think that's unfilmable, wait till you get like to lay the later books like Emperor of Dune.
yeah. Which I don't know if they're gonna continue. I don't know if maybe another director's maybe gonna pick them. Me and Sage talked about that. Like there is more
Mhm.
material to mine
Oh
from
yeah, there's
Dune.
far more
Um,
material.
and then I know Warner Brothers, they need a new big franchise. I don't know if they're gonna go like, hey, maybe hey, we got all this material Dune, maybe we're gonna go that. But for right now, Denis Villeneuve just says he's gonna do one more. And that's it. And there was even a discussion between me and Sage here whether or not the third one should even be split up because that one's pretty big too. If you want to split that up. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting that you had that kind of perspective about this movie and whether the ending kind of felt kind of rushed there. It's interesting. So with the second one, we're getting a lot more, also more of the characters we saw in the second one, but we didn't have I mean, the first one, but
Mhm.
we didn't have time to get to because the movie was wrapping up, and, so in this second one, we get more, with those characters here, like I said, the Freeman here, we get more of them. Zendaya, who's Chani in this, who's the love interest, of Paul Atreides, who I think this is probably the best I've seen Zendaya, acting-wise. I never thought she was a bad actress, but, it's probably really stretching and with her range, I think he or she does a really, really great job,
I'm here.
in the film. And yeah, a lot of stuff they do with her, I think is very good. It's a contrast to what she was in the first movie, where it's basically just she was shooting a Revlon commercial. So I'm good that she actually kind of plays a character here. Stuff with Florence Pugh in this, very good. I liked a lot of her scenes where you see her with the Emperor and kind of their own home planet. I thought that was a lot of really good scenes.
Mhm.
She's a what do you call it? The Beratresses?
Yeah, she's Princess Cerulean, the Emperor's daughter.
Yeah, but she's also the kind of part of like those group of women that have
Janet Bezeret.
Janet Bezeret. Yeah, the group of women there.
Yeah,
Um,
she's not quite because she received their tutelage and training. She's not quite a Janet Bezeret, but she has been basically tutored. The thing about the Empire is the Janet Bezeret basically have a seat, and they've been playing a game throughout all the lines, and taking the back seat. They're basically shadow manipulators that manipulate every house, every gene, every pool, so that eventually they could get the Kwisatz Haderach, who would be the first male-born Bene Gesserit that would have their powers, but they wanted in a gene line to get so when they did, they would be prepared for it in a time and a place where they would be prepared for it. But because of Lady Jessica, he may have shown up early and not under their control, which is their worst fear.
mm, interesting.
Because basically, for the Bene Gesserit, a man who cannot be controlled is limitless, and
Mm,
that terrifies them.
mm, interesting. So you have her, John Boyd, who's also in this, who's the Emperor. Javier Bardem, who you saw in the first one, but he gets a little bit more in this. I love him in this one. I
Oh yeah.
think he's one of my favorite characters in this one. He's a freeman, a very religious fundamentalist freeman.
Mhm,
You do have like two different sects of the freeman culture. You have one that believe like, hey, we believe we don't care about the prophecy, we don't care about the religion aspects. We believe we can free ourselves. We don't need a messiah. We don't need a
mhm,
prophet, which they believe that with Paul Atreides, they believe his character. Some believe that he is the Messiah, and he's going to lead them to this green paradise. He's going to turn
mhm.
Arrakis into this green paradise that has been written. So he represents more of that group of people. I thought he was really good. I thought when he had to be funny, I thought he was really funny. I think that a lot of the humor comes from him in the movie too. And he had to be dramatic. He had to be dramatic. Yeah, I loved a lot of that. And Immaturity said one thing I didn't bring up during the review of the 1984 Dune that I wish I had was how hard that movie whitewashed the entire Freeman culture. Yeah, so you see in this the Freeman culture, you see a lot of mix of like people like more browner skin, darker skin people here. With the Freeman, people like Zendaya, people like Javier Bardem, various other members there. So I liked it. I liked that there was like these two different sects of the
Yeah,
Freeman kind of culture and kind of went in more into that.
which
Would you?
is yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna pass it to you. Yeah, what do you think about that?
That's actually a so it's kind of there in the books where there's the north and the south, and they're kind of like slightly different. In the books, they're a lot more. There is hesitation at first, but eventually, like both of them get online. That's actually this movie's interpretation, which I think actually works. where there's that initial look, they're just outsiders who just joined our sect, and we're not really vibing with them. We don't really want to trust them. Basically, on the word of Javier Bardem's character Stilgar, that's the only thing that's saving them at this point, and it's basically like a fight for their bloodline, and so you can understand both sides. Uh, that's really more of an introduction in this movie where there's a constant fight, especially Zendaya. Zendaya's character, Shani or Johnny, as Timothy Chalamet, I think pronounces it. He, I want to stop saying they shoot. She kind of shows off more of a rebellious nature than she does in the books. She's always been bold in the books, but she does show off a far more rebellious, kind of pushing back constantly. I don't believe in this prophecy. I don't want to deal with this. I only care about the Fremen. I don't care about any of this other crap. What really interests me more is just that the Fremen are safe. That is her main concern. And I think that while I don't think Zendaya is able to kind of give that its full potential. She's better than she's been in some areas, but I honestly think she just doesn't fit the part, really. She just
Mm.
can't really emote. She gives one real facial expression, which is either doughy kind of I'm listening, and the other of pout, I'm mad, because it's like a face that your girlfriend gives you when she's mad about some shit that you've done.
Like that face?
Yeah.
That
And it's those two expressions throughout her entire thing. And meanwhile, uh meanwhile, Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem are acting circles around her every single scene. Even and I you know what? I will take back what it is like. I didn't think Timothée Chalamet was that really great as Paul Atreides in the first one. I felt it was a little. He really stepped up for this one. He
Mm.
really improved his performance in this one, and he really showed a consistency in trying to grow as a character. And I felt by the end well, may have not been the. I still think the best choice. He does bring it into his own eventually, and you really can see that character evolve where he starts off as more of a reluctant. This movie really spends a lot of time that's not necessarily in the book, although he does have the resisting trying to fulfill a quote unquote false prophecy. This one really hammers it home. Was like, I don't want to do that. I really don't want to be a kind of a white savior kind of situation. I really, really don't want to. And eventually his hand kind of gets forced where he just has to accept a destiny that he doesn't exactly want due to circumstances.
Mm.
And I think he does display that quite well. Honestly, for most of the acting, I think everyone does a really good job. Aside from Zendaya, who she does fine. The only performance I'm really, really disappointed with though was Christopher Walken.
Mm.
They just
Uh,
don't, and that's more just I think he can, whether he was just didn't have the energy, or he just they just made him play it really low key. Kind
yeah.
of similar how they have the Harkonnen head, who is played by Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Vladimir.
Mm.
He's far more pompous, far more it's just maniacal in the books, far more scheming and clever. Even though he is floating and he is like a really terrible body, he is far more flamboyant in his interactions. They're always scheming to try and kill each. The Harkonnens are always trying to scheme to kill each other, and having him just kind of floating around and not really saying much, I felt was it's fine, but I would have appreciated a little bit more of the scheming intellectual nature that that character has.
Mm. I was got the good that you bring up the Harkonnen. I was about to pivot into them. So you see Stellan Skarsgård, who you also saw as the Baron Harkonnen, who you saw in the first one. You also see Dave Bautista, who makes a return here as well. You see that now, after the fall of House Atreides, he got a promotion. He got a, you know what I mean? And then now that he got a promotion, he's fucking up on the job.
Uh,
You know what I mean? The Freemen are
which is
ruining.
consistent pretty much in every single version.
Uh, he's trying to collect this spice, be the number one spice harbors of the galaxy here to do this. But the Freeman, which I really love those action sequences where they're just interrupting all the production there. They're doing these small arm attacks there. They're with these tanks, and everything like that. I really loved a lot of that stuff. And you see Austin Butler, who's Fed Harkonnen there. Uh,
Mhm.
I really like. How do you feel about the whole Cronins in general? Do you think they're too a little too just like, ooh, we're crazy psycho killers there, and we're gonna show that by killing our own guys, and we don't even give a fuck about our own people. Like, how did you feel about
E
them?
Even in the books, Harkonnens are described as just completely bestial people, just completely repugnant, awful beings. They're not even humans anymore. They're animals. And they just focus more on constant chemical use to improve themselves, chemical use to deal with the atmosphere of their planet, which they caused upon themselves based on what they do. Uh, they also are involved in cloning and a few other just really screwed up crap. Yeah, they just have no interest on life at all. So I can see that. It may be a little too quick, especially when you're. There were some stupid moments where it was they're trying to find the Fremen, and he just gets mad and kills one of them. Like, you idiots, do it better. It felt like a Ren and Stimpy moment. Just
Mm,
do better. He's like, well, now the person who could have used that equipment is dead, and they're probably the other guys are probably not trained to use that equipment. So you just kind of cut off an arm because you're mad. But Dave Bautista's character is nicknamed the Beast, not for his brains. He's basically a brutish meathead. He's not smart at all. He makes really stupid, impulsive decisions. And this was supposed to be an easy job. And his younger brother, who was played by Austin Butler, who shows up, Afayed Rutha, he is far more sadistic, far more cruel, very intelligent, a honestly worthy rival for Paul Atreides in just his cunning and cleverness. And if anyone honestly is going to take the Harkonnen uh, crown, so to speak, even in the books, it's basically been like, yeah, it's going to be him.
mm, yeah. And I liked it, kind of squaring off. It's like kind of wish this movie was almost longer to get into more of the conflict, the ongoing conflict there that on this planet
Mm,
of Dune of Arrakis. There to see a little bit more of the military strategy of
yeah.
Austin Butler's character. That would have been nice. Um, you do mention and Rating from Maturity said in the book, Baron is also more actively gross too, like disease, pustules
Oh yeah.
leaking out of his face and stuff like that. What you saw in the 1984 Dune,
Yeah,
they
there
very
are
much.
some things that are more accurate in the book, and ironically, in 1984 version than there are here. Honestly, they don't show how space works, which uh, even in part one, Dennis did say he did film all those parts. It's just they had to be cut out. There were a lot of extra scenes cut out of this movie as well that have credits as special thanks, but are not in this version. So I have no doubt that when this is all said and done, almost like years later, like Lord of the Rings, they'll emerge
Special
a
edition.
special edition extended cut
Uh,
with those added scenes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, maybe like that, probably.
Yeah, which I'd be down to see it. I would definitely be down if you're doing a
Oh yeah,
trilogy, and I'm gonna wait for it to come as a trilogy and to bundle all together when they do that, and to have all the special features and extras and
yeah.
everything like that. That'd be great to see if they can close it out and close it out well. I would definitely be
Mhm.
interested in something like that. But yeah, just to see a little bit more of the ongoing conflict there. As far as your opinion about John Voight, I guess I can kind of see that. It seems like he's a little bit more toned down than we usually see Christopher. I mean, I'm sorry, uh, Christopher Walken. I kept saying
Yeah,
John Voight. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Christopher
It's all
Walken.
right. We
Christopher
were talking
Walken.
about Bratz earlier. He wasn't that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I kept saying John Voight. I mean Christopher Walken. Yeah, Christopher Walken. It's a little bit more toned down than we've seen him before. So I kind of see your opinion there. But maybe I'm thinking, I don't know if you maybe know
Mhm.
more. You probably know him since but that he's gonna have more of a bigger role there, maybe later on.
He will
Maybe
not.
okay, interesting. So yeah, but yeah, I kind of see some of your opinion there.
Yeah, he's basically without spoiling anything. He's a character who is very much controlled by the Bezert Jesuit, and as a kind of a he believes himself to be a grandmaster in playing of chess when really he's just at best he's the king on the chessboard. He's not the grandmaster, he's just another piece on the board
Mm,
being
okay.
outplayed and maneuvered. And eventually there around the time that when he realizes that Paul Atreides is alive, he realizes his time is being short.
Yeah. And you mentioned Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem.
Mhm.
I think they're acting circles around a lot of people, honestly. I think
Yeah,
they are very great in the movie, and to see, like, her arc in this movie, Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, I think she does really well here to see her kinda stuff there and her role in kind of helping legitimize, Paul Atreides, Timothée Chalamet.
by
I
using
li
very nefarious means.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. Yeah, this was man, I mean, this was
Mhm,
great movie to watch. Like I said, I think it is better than the first one. I think it's more thrilling than the first one. I think it's better than pretty much every element than the first one. I say the
mm,
first one's bad. I just think the first one is okay. You just get into the story. There's quite a bit of setup there that you have to get into. Here, you're more getting into
mhm,
the characters and this world, and now you're fully kind of more settled in, and this conflict, and everything like that. And I'm interested to see where they're going to take this next.
mhm,
This movie is filled with really good performances. We've mentioned from Timothy Chalamet to Zendaya, from Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Christopher Walken. I think it is filled with some really great Austin Butler there. The look of this movie, gorgeous look of this movie too. Like I said, this scene right here, man, I'd love to revisit the scene again. Um, yeah, really fantastic movie on a
mhm.
lot of levels here. Definitely, if you can, if you have the availability to, if you're if an IMAX theater is in your surrounding area, please go see it in IMAX if you can. I think it's really going to benefit you to see it in IMAX, see it on a nice big glorious screen, with the sound just booming. I think that would really help a lot. So for me, yeah, I would give it a high peak for me. What about you?
Uh, just like the first part, there are parts in this I wish the story was told maybe slightly better. Certain things that were changed in the book for the movies, I would have preferred not be changed because they I knew what would kind of happen later as they went on, and I was not I was not proved wrong. But despite those changes and what could have been done, I think it's honestly a miracle that this has been as well adapted as it has been for a book that's mostly, yeah, pretty much very difficult to adapt, almost impossible to adapt. Dennis has done an amazing job adapting it with a pretty stellar cast for the most part. We didn't even talk about uh, Jason Brolin, Josh
Uh,
Brolin
yeah,
as
Josh Brolin.
Gunry, which I was for small detail's sake, I really appreciated that they showed off that he was playing an instrument because it's actually a big part of his character. It's the only big part is really shown off is in a dinner scene earlier in the books. But as soon as I saw that as a fan, or at least as I see multiple versions, like I knew who that character was right away. Small details like that in other moments make me realize, like, just know right away that Dennis is a big fan of the book. He's read it, he knows different versions of it, he's aware of it. And what changes he makes, while I don't always necessarily agree with some of them, I do see his point in trying to make them. Again, I wish, as much as I do love these movies, I wish a bit more of the science fiction kind of color comes out. Some of these are a little muted, but when they do have color in them, they really pop. And that muted, it does give an excellent contrast for it. But for all those things that I may not have liked or things that I wish could have done better, it does not take away from the whole. As a movie in general, this has been a breath of fresh air just seeing, especially in IMAX. Uh, I came prepared this time. I wore specific earplugs for the IMAX experience because, boy, when it gets loud and it gets loud, the
Yeah,
room shakes.
yeah.
It lets you know it's there.
Mm,
And there are just certain moments that you're just not gonna forget if you happen to see an IMAX. What really comes down to, despite what gripes might have for small things, is this movie worth seeing in cinema? And I can answer that very clearly as a yes. This is definitely worth seeing in cinema, which is something I haven't said in a couple of months, really. And I'm so
mm,
happy to say that for the second part. I would say the same for the first part. I would say this definitely for the second part. You're definitely get a lot more action than the first part. First part's more political and more like mind games, and this is where the consequences from those mind games concludes. Uh, with that, I think I just, yeah, I think I just rate this as a I'm kind of bordering on a high tune in, low peak. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a low peak. I think this is very, very good. It whatever with some small problems and some big problems here and there for book fans, but I think it's better than the sum of its parts, and it more than makes up for it. And for that alone, it is definitely worth seeing in the cinema. IMAX, if you could do so, I think you will really be justified, especially for that. Which I don't know if your IMAX pricing, it was like $25. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think this is one of the few occasions that you can splurge for a bit.
Yeah. I have the AMC Stubs pass there, so it doesn't allow you to pay for IMAX or any 3D movie there. You get basically free movies a week there with the IMAX Stubs pass for $21 a month. You could do that.
Good investment, especially the amount of movies we see.
Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't have that, I'd be real in real trouble with the amount of movies we see a week. So,
Yeah, I'm
this
just
is a
talking about layman's pricing.
yeah. If you're just somebody who just like, hey, I want a good theater experience right now. What movie can I go see? Go see Dune. If I had to
Go
say
see
if
us and do part two.
Yeah, Dune Part 2, I think. This is a good theater experience. This is something to see in theaters. Like I said, it's been a it's been a wasteland.
Yeah.
It's been a desert.
Just
Uh,
know if you're gonna go to see an IMAX, uh, bring some form of ear protection or be ready because it does get loud.
yeah, yeah, it does get loud there. So yeah, you gave it a low peak, high tune in there, kind of around that territory
Yeah,
for Dune Part 2. I
definitely,
gave it
but
a high
definitely
peak.
a movie. Definitely a movie experience. Definitely go out and see it.
I gave it a high peak there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. First great movie for me in 2024. I was already making a list of worst of 2024. I already got a good
I
list
I
ready.
know we
You
got
know,
Argyle, a few others.
Madam Web,
Madam Web, ooh, yeah,
Miller's Girl, this new Tyler Perry movie. I already got a good, basically half of a top bottom worst list already,
you're gonna
and
have to do.
it's not
Yeah,
even we're not even out of March yet. I was
no,
like,
we're not even in March. We just started March.
yeah, so they have that. But hey, finally, a movie that I'm like, okay, I could see this putting this on
Yeah.
my best of list there, depending on how the rest of the year shakes out. So there is that. Yeah. So yeah, that were our thoughts on Doom Part 2.